What are the top stocks that politicians are buying right now, and should we add them to our watch list? Let's go ahead and break it down. All right, so there are politicians that are loading up on certain companies right now, and I have the list of the top 10, but the question is, should we really buy some of these stocks? Some of them I have a problem with, but let's go ahead and start with the list, and I'll call out the ones I like, the ones I don't like, and obviously their performance. But starting off at number 10 is Dassault. It is a French software company. DASTY is the stock symbol here. It is up 14% in the last 6 months and down 0.5% in the last year. Why would you invest in a software company in the year 2024 that has been down at all? Okay, we quite literally have companies up 60, 70, 80, 200% in the last year, and you invest in a company that's down. It don't compute to me. Now, the thing with this company is OTC. We call it over the counter. It's listed in France, so it's going to be relatively difficult for most people to buy this company. I wouldn't recommend buying it anyway, so I don't think it's a concern. We can move on. Next here is Humacyte. This is an interesting one. HUMA is a company. Do not confuse this with Humana, the insurance company, which is not worth buying right now, by the way. But HUMA is the stock symbol here. It is up 62% in the last 6 months and up 11% over the last year. However, be careful, because this right now is a penny stock. When I looked at it last night, it was about $3 per share. So being up 62% does sound great, and it is, but when you're only $3 a share, that ain't but so much. Okay, so be very careful around that. Now, this is interesting because not only have a lot of politicians bought this is not the first time that I've seen politicians pour into this stock. It's just real interesting that you would buy a penny stock at all, just because it can be very volatile. There are a lot of hedge funds that are also looking and buying this stock as well. This is something I would prefer to research. It's not something I would buy because I just don't. It just doesn't seem worth the risk for me. Okay, for me. But again, it's penny stock. Insiders are buying it. Politicians are buying it. I don't know why, but maybe they know something I don't. Okay, maybe I need to read up on it and see what's going on there. Next here is, and perhaps I spelled this wrong, or I wrote it with a Sharpie. Okay, y'all have written with a Sharpie. You know, sometimes the details aren't all that great. So I have Ardmore Shipping Corp. ASC is a stock symbol. That's what I wrote down here. Again, maybe I just wrote it down wrong. But the congressperson, Virginia Foxx, she's in North Carolina. That's what I pointed out here because I'm in North Carolina. Now, this company is up 22% in the last 6 months. I think that's solid. But it's only up 5% over the last year. It's okay. It's fine. I think there are things that it can do much better. There are actually, I would argue, 3 to 4 more stocks on this list, including 2 down on this list that are better than that one. But it's okay. Nothing I would really complain about on this list. Now, I do have a major complaint about this one, and I have a theory as to why somebody would buy this stock, even though I think it's trash, okay? It's Dominion Energy. The stock symbol here is D. Now, it's up 26% in the last 6 months, which is generally good, but it's down 12% in the last year. Now, I've talked about energy companies. This is not going to be the only energy company on this particular list. Now, when it comes to energy companies, remember that most energy companies are what we call in an economic textbook, that's what I majored in and all kinds of stuff, they are regional monopolies for the most part. In your area, you got but like one energy company, and that's it. It's just the nature of how these things work. You can't have but that many energy companies in one particular region. Well, this is all my thought and all my theory, okay? If you are a politician in that space, I think some people are just buying these companies just because they are the senator in that area or the congressperson in that area, and they know the CEO or something, they're just buying it just because it doesn't make sense why I would buy a company that's not doing that well, and you'll see why, versus an NRG that is doing well, or some of these other energy stocks that are doing quite well versus the one that's in your backyard that's not doing well. That's just my thought. And because you know the CEO, and because it's people in your region, I just feel like they're just buying the stock just because. When it comes to energy, because again, those are highly regionally monopolistic versus some of these other companies that are on the list. Just my thought, just my theory, just throwing it out there. All right. Next year's IBM. IBM up 32% in the last 6 months, up 44% over the last year. We have talked about it, if I'm not mistaken. I believe we talked about it last week. I believe it's about dividends. Throwing it out there. I think it was IBM that had a 2 to 3% dividend. Again, all from memory. I do 3 videos a week, 52 weeks a year here. Okay. But IBM, I think, is very solid. I think we do need to know across the board the stock market has slowed down in the last 3 to 3.5 weeks. So just know that. I do still think that IBM is solid, but we do need to be ready to play defense just in case. We can talk more about that later this week. As we move on the list, remember I do have a free guide on how you can start investing. If you like to learn more about the stock market, but you're like, hey, I don't know where to start, what apps to use, how this whole thing works, there's a 100% free PDF guide. You can get it by clicking the link below, and there's a link on the screen as well. You can do it in just 20 minutes. It is very easy to understand and read over. All right, next here is a company that I do not like. Okay, again, to me, okay, and I think this is a very easy investing strategy that we can all get behind. I don't like losing money is number one. I don't think any of us like losing money. Okay, number two, if you're investing in a space where there are dozens or at least a handful of companies that are doing well, don't choose the one that's doing bad. Okay, Devon Energy is not doing well. It is up only 9% in the last 6 months and down 0.54% in the last year. Okay, why? This goes back to my, it's a regional monopoly. You're the congressperson in that area and you're just doing it to look good because you know somebody. I don't know. It does not make sense. Okay. Now, again, I've mentioned NRG on more than one occasion, but it's not the only good energy stock out there. Okay. We've done a video. Now, I'll make sure we link to it and we'll talk about it at the end. But I did a video on all the best stocks in every single sector. Okay. We've done that. Okay. So it does not compute. I really don't get why anybody would do that. I don't. So we're gonna move on. Next here is Home Depot. Home Depot is solid. It has been a solid company for a very long, a solid stock rather, for a very long time. Pays a solid dividend. It's been doing a very solid dividend for like 20 plus years, if I'm not mistaken. It is up 17% in the last 6 months, up 12% over last year. It's fine. It's okay. I have no complaints. It's not the best stock in the world. It's also not the worst stock in the world. While I don't have the numbers in front of me when it comes to Lowe's, I feel like they are almost identical. Now, there was a point, I would say, probably in 2021 when I liked Lowe's a lot more than what I like it now. But, I mean, you can flip-flop them. I would do your analysis if you want to look into it. What I would do, though, with the company like Home Depot and the next company on this list is put them in the waiting bucket. Put it in the maybe defense bucket. I said the word maybe. I say all that because, like I said, with IBM, we might be going into a downturn. I don't know that yet. I need a lot more information, but I'm somebody that likes to be ready, right? I like to be ready so I ain't got to get ready. So I'm putting together my defense list if things turn the wrong way. I just want to have stuff to pull from as opposed to let me start looking, let me start selling, let me start panicking. I don't need to do all that because I've already done my research. I already know that if the market does this, here are the 5 stocks I'm buying, here are the 10 stocks I'm buying. So I don't know if Home Depot is going to be the best defensive stock. I know it pays a solid dividend. I'm just going to put it in the, perhaps this is where I'm going to start my research from. So put it on the side, just put it on the list, leave it there. Next year's FedEx. Maybe you want to put it there. I've never really seen FedEx as a defensive stock, but it is up 12% in the last 6 months, up 17% in the last year. It is the inverse. It is the inverse of Home Depot in terms of performance. So Home Depot up 17 and 12. FedEx is up 12 and 17. Just a fun fact, throwing it out there. All right. Next year's Johnson & Johnson. What? Why? It's Johnson & Johnson. It's terrible. Even during the pandemic, when we're talking about Pfizer and some of those other vaccine stocks and pharmaceutical companies, Johnson & Johnson wasn't good back then. I made this exact same face 4 years ago when it came to Johnson & Johnson. I don't care what the dividend was then, and I don't care what it is now. It's down down 3% in the last 6 months, down 8% over the last year. Next. the next company here, which has the most insider buys and it has the most Congress people buying into the company, is AMD. AMD, the chip making company. This company has done quite well, and looking at my list here, has done the best performance-wise out of all these companies. This is the one that does make sense. Up 46% in the last 6 months, up 68% over last year. I like it. I have no beef with this particular stock. Obviously, though, there are a handful of chip makers that are doing good. Okay, now we all know the one or two that have really reset records, if you will, but I think AMD is doing quite well. I've talked about Micron and how they're kind of off the radar. I would argue that a lot of people feel, I guess outside of Capitol Hill, that AMD is relatively off the radar too, just because SCMI and NVIDIA have sucked all the oxygen out of the room. But I think AMD is solid. We've talked a little bit about it inside our members only. Members only also got this video quite a bit earlier than most people. Now, Congress people, as I've said before, across the board, right? They can buy things for one reason, because they think it is going to go up. Now, my theory on why you would buy an energy company that's bad, again, they're still spending their own money. Okay, so even though I think it may be a bad idea, they have to have some reason, because we also know how much we have a range of how much money they're spending. So 15,000 to 50,000 or whatever, we see, right, how much they spent. So we still think like, hey, well, I don't think it's a good stock. You still have spent a significant amount of money. You have to have thought that stock was going to go up, but we don't know why they would sell, right? So I can only glean but so much. Not every person on Congress is a financial expert, and even though they may have some interesting information and have some privileged information, doesn't necessarily make them the best investors either. So what are some stocks that you know you should own, right, from someone who has some actual financial background, right? So what are some stocks you should actually own and that are diversified, because this list isn't necessarily in all of the spots of the stock market that you should actually own. So what I have done is create a list for the best stocks in every single sector. So tech, good stocks that are actually in energy, and everything in between. If you want to know what those stocks are, you want to check out this list right here.